out.
Hello and welcome back to Grumpy Old Men. We've got a very special guest who has joined us on the couch, an absolute legend. Played on the wing, he says he's the greatest wingman of all time. Bulldogs record holder, games record holder, one great season with Fitzroy. And Dougie Hawkins, of course, is back on Grumpy Old Men. And, of course, he's our very special guest on the couch. Did we take you by surprise then, Doug? Did we take you by surprise?
Absolutely.
Why do you think we put you down in that end where the
I had no idea what was going on, but anyway, fire away, boys.
You're it, mate.
Well, tell us about this young boy growing up in Braybrook and finding his way down to the Bulldogs and all
Not
those
going to school and
all those
that
other
business.
great players that came from Braybrook, because there's a statue of you these days along with Teddy Whitten in Braybrook.
Yeah, it was pretty tough, Kev. I mean, you know, coming from Braybrook, I mean, it was a working class area and a lot of factories and housing commission flats, which me, my mum, my dad and my sister lived in, and, mate, it was tough. But, you know, one thing about it, I had a dream, and you got to follow your dreams, like we all have, I suppose, and I always wanted to play VFL footy, and my dream come true at the age of 17, but, gee, it was tough. There's no doubt about that. I left school at the age of 15, which I wasn't proud of, but that's how it was back in those days. You get a job, next day you get another job, and my first job was in a sausage factory. I'll never forget it. I lasted 1 week. I said to the boss, I'm going back to school, which was a lie. I didn't want to go back to school. And I did these sausages the next 4 years after I said, oh, mate, that was shocking.
Not good.
It was terrible time.
Don is good.
Don is good. It is good, Bobby. No, it's fantastic.
Well, Paul Callery, who played with Melbourne and St Kilda, told me that he was your teacher at school, and he said Doug wasn't very interested in anything that was academic, but he said give him a ball, whether it be football or basketball or cricket or soccer. He said he was just absolutely fantastic.
Paul was fantastic. He was playing at Melbourne that stage, and he was my sports teacher. And another guy named Hugh Mooney, who played soccer for Sunshine City, I think it was, or Sunshine George Cross. And I was pretty keen on soccer at one stage there. I was a very good goalie. So, and then Paul Carey come along and he started talking about footy, and I just started playing my junior footy career at Braybrook, started playing footy at Braybrook, and
He'd be lucky to see over the desk, wouldn't he, Paul Callery?
He was very, I used to take marks on his shoulders. I thought, I'm going to make it big time here. But he wasn't that big, as you said, Bob. But no, I enjoyed my soccer as well. But then all of a sudden I started playing footy at Braybrook and things just turned around, Kev.
What about your family background? How many kids in the family? And tragically, your father passed away a couple of weeks ago. But did he have a background at footy or
Dad played footy. Dad was invited down to the Bulldogs. He went down in Charlie Sutton's time, and Dad played a lot of footy up in Shepparton with a club called Lemnos. I think it was Lemnos. Yeah, he came down to the Bulldogs. Didn't like the training, and for some reason he didn't mind a beer. He enjoyed a beer too, which obviously rubbed off on his son a little bit too. But he didn't like it, so he went down and played a bit of footy at Yarraville in the VFA, and then went down and finished his time at Parkside, which was in the Footscray District League. And my sister was a very good basketball player as well. Vicky was very, very good at a very young age, but didn't go on to the level that she maybe could have been, you know, a very good player.
Well, we've heard you talk about it. Is this true that William Goggin came out to see you, or who came out to see you?
Billy came out when I was 15, and he said, listen, son, I want you to come to the Bulldogs. And I was only 15, I was only about 8 stone wet. Do you know what I mean? I was just so light, and I said, listen, I think I'm just not quite ready to play at this level. He said, no, play on the 19s, and you know, we'll keep you there for probably 3 or 4 years. And I thought, if I go down there at 15 and play 3 or 4 years, I may get lost in the system. So I waited till the age of 17, and my stepfather, Johnny, said, listen, son, you're not going down there. You'll go down when you're ready, and that'll be at the end of the under-17 period, you'll go down to the Bulldogs.
Dougie, who was your first coach there, and what position did they prefer you to play at?
Well, the first coach was Billy Goggin. He only lasted 1 week, Bill. He coached us. He coached us.
He got to pre-season 1 week.
Get out there,
Well, he left. He decided to go, Billy. There were certain reasons.
He put Dougie in. That was the end.
And he left.
Yeah, he left.
In Hawkins out Goggin.
Yeah, out Goggin.
My first game was against the Kangaroos, Jono, and I followed the Kangaroos as a kid. And my hero was Keith Gregg. I mean, I love Keith Gregg. And to say that I played my first game against the Kangaroos, I mean, it was more or less, I started in the forward pocket on a bloke named Ross Henshaw. He was about 6'3".
Yeah.
I shook his hand and looked up, I said, you're going to be kidding, aren't you? You're fair dinkum. Then I went down the wing and had a bit of a run on Greg and Shimmer. So I started more of a forward pocket rover with young EJ, young Teddy Whitten.
Not a bad two to start on.
Oh, mate, it was a great start. Don't forget, they'd won the flag in 77.
Yeah,
when I think they drew Collingwood, and beat them in the replay. And I remember as a kid going there at 16 watching it, you know, watching them win that. And here I am, my last game of footy was in the under-17s grand final in front of about 1,000 people at Skinner Reserve. And I've only played junior footy, no senior footy.
That's amazing.
And my next game was in front of 25,000 at the Western Oval, which is now the Whitten Oval. And then all of a sudden I run out and I'm standing there with the Gary Dempseys, the Calvin Templins, the Alan Stonehams, Ian Dunstan, some of the stars of the Bulldogs, and all of a sudden out come the Kangaroos. And there was Greg, Shimmer, Dench, Blight, you know, all these great champions. Gee, what am I doing here?
Did you get in the best players,
I had
Dave?
about 8 kicks. I struggled that day. Gee, it was fast. I couldn't believe how quick it was. The ball was just going, it was flying around, and I stayed in the seniors and went down to St Kilda and played against the Saints in my second game and copped Robert Muir.
Is it true?
It was a good start to my career.
Did you get belted?
It was a great start to my career.
Because Robbie could be a good chance for the win
Yeah,
in the
Greg,
Grumpy Old
Silverbush,
Men's
Muir.
Team of the Century.
And before you get on the Robbie Muir, was it true that in the first game, though, because you love Keith Gregg, when they did the warm-up running around you while you were stretching, you clapped them, the North Melbourne side?
I broke into a slow clap. I said, there's Greggy, there goes Shimmer.
I love him.
I was picking him out.
Can I have your autograph, please?
How are you, Mr. Greg? I'm Dougie. I'm from Braybrook.
dear, I can
When did you
imagine.
first play on the wing for the Bulldogs? Because it's famous now out at the Western Oval, the Whitten Oval these days, that you got the Doug Hawkins wing.
It more or less started, Kev, probably about 84 when Mick Moldhouse arrived. I mean, I played a little bit in the centre under Ian Hampshire and with Royce Hart when he was the coach. And so it was probably 84 when Mick arrived. And for some reason I played on the outer wing and with the wind was to blow that side all the time. So one quarter I stayed there and he said, listen, stay there again. You're going to play on this outer wing again. So I stayed there the whole game. And for some reason, under Mick Moldhouse, every ground we played at, I played on the outer wing for some reason.
Well, I reckon I know the reason, because the times I played out there, or anyone played out there, I mean, whenever the wind blew, it always blew out to the outer wing.
That's
so
right,
obviously,
yeah.
as the best wingman or the best player at the club, you were always in the action because the ball was always going to be.
right,
It would have been shocking playing on the wing in front of the EJ Whitten stand.
That's right, and the ball wasn't out there too often. And you know, and at the end of the day, I played with some great players at the Bulldogs. I mean, I played with 5 Brownlow medalists. I mean, Gary Dempsey, even though he won in 75, I played with him in 78. And of course, in 1980, it was Calvin Templeton. 85 was Brad Hardy. 1990, it was Tony Liberatore. And then, of course, Scotty Wine won in 92. And then we looked down the track, maybe Chris Grant and Scotty West have been a bit stiff. So it could have been 7 Brownlow medalists I would have played with.
Well, how disappointing was that when individually you had the players of that calibre, but as a team you really struggled for success?
We did, Tone. We just... I think our culture was pretty laid back. You know, if we won a game of footy, we'd really celebrate and have a really good time. And you know, and
What time did you get home in the morning?
if I went out on a Saturday night after a big victory, I'd be getting home Monday morning. Yeah. In the same clothes as well. But it was. I mean, the culture back in. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but back in the late 70s was having a beer and playing footy.
Enjoy a win.
And as Jono said, you know, it's a game. You play the game. It's not about anything else but a game of footy.
Well, one thing, Doug, you would have had some great contests with some great players.
Oh, yeah.
Today, you watch the football and it's all about uncontested marks.
Yeah,
how many
that's right.
each side has taken, or how many players have taken uncontested marks. You would have played on a litany of quality players where it was a contest from the start to the finish.
Jono, some great players. No, truly. I mean, at a young age, at 17, you know, to talk about the names of Greg, Shimmerbush, you know, Robert Flower, what a brilliant player he was. Then you look at Michael Turner, Ricky Barron, Jeff Cunningham, Brian Wood was fantastic. Jeff Cunningham, Merv Nagel, Rodney Eade, Jeff Ablett, and then the young Gavin Brown arrived from Collingwood, and then, of course, the late Darren Mullane, David Glaskett. I mean, the list just goes on and on. And when you're only young, and, you know, at 17, 18, it makes you really develop a little bit quicker.
Yes,
And you think in those days, and it's interesting with what Wayne is saying there, is that I know Tommy Hafey always used to say, you be the best swingman in AFL football in 1980 or 1981 or 1990, whatever it was, or you be the best centre half forward. And at the end of the year, everyone will say the best swingman in the competition is Doug Hawkins. And you could go out and play football to take on all those players that you mentioned, and at the end of the season, you could say, I'm the best wingman in the competition. These days, of course, you may never play on the same guy.
That's right.
You know, week after week, or
They rotate them
may never
against
ever
you.
see the guy on the wing ever again.
You're spot on, Kev. You know, and you're playing on great players, as Jono, you know, posed the question. And you know, each week I knew, you know, being, you know, playing as the number 1 wingman for the Bulldogs, I was going to cop a very good wingman every week, and it really did help you develop a lot quicker.
What about your state sides? You love, look, Teddy was running Teddy Whitten, we see this must be after a win, is it? Or a good
Coming
win,
back after the knee, sure.
After your knee?
Yeah.
Well,
after you skittle me.
Sorry,
Very tired.
tragically, KB, I fell across Dougie's knee at the MCG when he had to have his Rico, and it was tragic because it was an accident. I've always said that, you've known that. But the state sides with Teddy, because you got on so well with Teddy, there's a little story in '84 when we played in Perth and we got beaten by 3 points and 35-degree heat, and Ablett kicked 9. And we came in and didn't he? Teddy goes, 8 of you, did you play?
John was part of it.
Dug out the night before.
Did you?
Yeah, we
and Teddy goes, 8 of you blokes will never play for Victoria again. We only been beaten by 3 points and 35 degrees. And I thought, oh, well, I'm gone. I never played till 1990. That was 6 years later. I thought you were in those 6. But
I was one of the 6.
You were one of the 6, but what happened?
I played the next year because EJ loved me.
I was vice captain next year.
There we go.
We will drive
I
around.
must have been drinking at the same pub.
We will drive around the Merc the night before.
That's true, Tony. EJ said 6 blokes ain't all
Never
night.
play again. Yeah.
But I had a pretty good start to the '85 season, so he left me in the side.
Yeah, good on you.
There is a very famous moment in football when you broke Teddy's games record at the Bulldogs, and Teddy came down in the suit and ran out onto the ground and did the flick pass, and I mean you could see tears coming out of your eyes, and Teddy would have been very proud of that record with the Bulldogs, but he was really gracious and he was quite happy to hand it over to Doug Hawkins. But it was a very special moment in the game.
It was, KB. It sort of brings the hairs up my back now we speak about it. It's been 10 years coming up this year, and it's been 9 years since EJ had passed away, and the whole 2 or 3 weeks leading up to it, because my form was pretty ordinary. The day that I equalled his record, I played against Richmond in the MCG. I started on the bench and I really did struggle. I had about 3 kicks, and I just thought to myself that I don't really deserve this. That I thought, and I forgot about all the 16 other years that leading up to this point, and I thought to myself, I'm going to retire, equaling the great EJ Whitten, Mr. Football's record. And I spoke to Ted and he said, listen, son, record's there to be broken. You get out and break it. And I'll never get the day.
So you asked Teddy
I said,
whether or not you think I should go on and beat your record.
I'm going to
equal record.
equal your record, and he said, it's about time you come to your senses, son, he said to me.
That's a great man.
But he is a great man. He just said, listen, son, you get out there and you play the game, and you deserve it, and it's there to be broken. And I think at the end of the day, I think you said it right, Kev, that EJ was happy that it was me, because EJ was from Braybrook, I was from Braybrook, and we had this sort of a bond, to be fair to say. It was a bit like a father figure in some way. And the day I ran down the race, and EJ was working for K-Rock Radio, and he was there to call the game, which was even more special. And to run through the race with my 2 daughters, my best mate Steve McPherson was, that was his first game that year. He'd been struggling to get a game, and it was his first game for the whole year. And to get through the race and to see EJ with the tears in his eyes, which is something I'll never forget, because in our time in Victorian sides, he showed a bit of emotion, but I didn't see him show that sort of thing. And to break his record, it was just a great honour. I mean, because for one, I didn't think I belonged there with the great Teddy, but geez, it was it's just a special moment.
How did you play that day?
Well, I started on the bench under Alan Joyce, and
You started you on the bench.
and I was so happy that Gary Ablett cleaned up Rowan Smith very early in the first quarter, which I don't really mean it that way, but I was going on to play in the forward pocket. But after Smitty, as I was coming on, Smitty got skittled, and he was getting carried off a crook shoulder. I went straight to the half-back flank to play that loose roll across the half-back flank, and
You became a sweeper.
a sweeper, and we struggled to beat the Cats, Bobby, as you know, for many years, and even in '92 they smashed us in the finals. But that day we got up and won, and ended up with about 22, 23 touches, which was just a fairy tale. And the first bloke I saw as I come off the ground into the race was EJ. Shook the hand with now the famous handshake. Had a couple of cans of VB, and we went, you little beauty, Dougie. Let's have a big night tonight. It was fantastic.
And what time did you get home that night?
I got home, and then I met EJ again on Sunday. We had a big Sunday afternoon at the club, and then we went out for tea that Sunday night. I think it was in Williamstown. I met him again for breakfast Monday morning. We had a few more beers. Went for 3 days. It was fantastic.
Universally, there's not many footballers, I think, that are liked by a lot of other supporters. But, Jono, I know one thing. You would never make a Collingwood banner if you had a milestone. Because they don't like you.
I made the dartboards.
Oh, you made the dartboards. But I remember, I think it was a week after I played my 300th, you had played your record, and the Collingwood will run out at the Western Oval.
It was your 300th, Tony. It was your 300.
Yeah, but they hadn't had a banner the week before.
Oh, okay.
So on one side they got 300, and I was thinking, oh, this is great. I'm playing my 300. They turn around, and here's Dougie Hawkins. Congratulations. I said, we're getting soft at Collingwood. And that was a true... Look, that to me just showed how people feel about Dougie Hawkins as a person.
Parkin thought Dougie, in his time at Carlton, was the best player, pound for pound, playing in the game. he thought one-on-one, he was a very difficult opponent to match up on. And he was always deep in our plans. But out at the Western Oval, it was a different kettle of fish. We couldn't handle it out there because the contest kept going out to you, Dougie. Yeah. And they kept playing it through you, and he was a very difficult opponent to beat. Nowadays, it'd be a 2-on-1 thing.
Yeah. How difficult was it, Doug, as the club record holder, to leave the Bulldogs and go to Fitzroy for that one season? Do you ever regret that?
Did you have a handshake or did you have a contract?
It was really tough, KB, Bobby. It was really, I love the club so dearly, and I get a little bit emotional sometimes even talking about it now. I mean, I gave 7 years of my life, and the club was good for me and I was good for them as well. And there's nothing worse when you still think in your own heart you've got something with offer and you still think you can still play. And we all love footy. You want to play forever, but you can't. And when the club told me that it was time to give it away, I was really dirty because I thought I wanted to continue to play. And Johnny, you know what I'm trying to say? You just want to keep playing. And at the end of the day, Kev, I had a chance to go to Essendon in '83. I met Kevin Sheedy a few times, and I was that close to signing the contract to go to the Bombers. And I could have played in the '84-'85 Premiership, which is what footy's all about, playing in finals. And I stayed at Bulldogs. I love the jumper. I love the club. And I love my mates with a lot of passion. So I stayed at Bulldog. So to go to Fitzroy, it was tough. I had a lot of letters from Footscray supporters saying, Dougie, how dare you go there? You're a one-jumper player. I always wanted to be a one-jumper player. That was my passion. But in my heart, I wanted to prove to myself I could still do it. And as EJ would say, stick it up them that says you can't do it. I had 21 games. I missed only one game. And Bernie Quinlan was the first year as a coach straight out of the media. But Bernie was terrific and a great fella. We were a shocking side. We were hopeless. We were very ordinary. But the club was like Footscray. The people around it would give you their last dollar. They were fantastic people, Kev. So I look back and I get this question a lot. I have no regrets whatsoever about Fitzroy. I loved our time there. It was only 12 months and I played with guys now. I can sit back now and watch Martin Pike. He's played in 4 premierships now and who knows, it could be 5. You know, in '95, if I said to Pikey, you're going to be a 4, he would have said, you're on drugs, Hawk. You're kidding, aren't you? You're joking. And Chris Johnson, you know, the kid who could have went either way. He was only 21. He had all the ability. Didn't he, John? He had all the ability in the world, Chris Johnson. And I thought to myself, is he going to make it? And I can sit back now and watch these guys just develop. It's just fantastic.
When you watch the Brisbane team play now, he is the great delight to watch. Chris Johnson. It is just fantastic to watch him play.
Well, Bobby, 4 years ago he asked me when I was up in Brisbane, when he first got up there, or 5 years ago, he said, Jono, can you get me back to Carlton? I want to go and play at Carlton. I didn't have any pull with Carlton because of the draft net, because you got homesick. Yep. Because you live locally, and all he wanted to do is go.
John, I think up that way, Jakarta.
Oh, I'm not. Yeah, he was out that way, and he just all he wanted to do is play footy for Carlton and have. You know, I saw him after last year's grand final, the one before. Yeah. You never seen a happier fellow in your life.
It's incredible to watch him play now.
His balance is beautiful, and he's
super
tough.
player.
Super player.
We'll take a break. We'll come back on Grumpy Old Men. Dougie Hawkins, of course, just one of the all-time greats of AFL football. He's our very, very surprise guest on the couch. Not even Dougie knew about that. And we'll talk to Doug, first of all, when we come back, about that famous trip to Hawaii, of course, with the Bulldogs and his great mate, Robert Gronewagen. They caused a little bit of problems, I think, for Qantas on that particular trip. Plus, of course, we're going to pick the centre-half back and the Grumpy team of the century. Back after this.